What happens when a man saves a baby lion and reunites with it years later? This heart-stopping encounter will leave you speechless. In the heart of Africa, where the sun beats down relentlessly on the golden savanna, danger and beauty collide. This is the world where Valentin Gruner, a passionate conservationist, and his close friend Mikkel Lagarth spent their days patrolling the wilderness, working tirelessly to protect the animals that roamed free across the land. Botswana, Africa, with its vast and untamed beauty, was a place both breathtaking and dangerous. Yet for Valentin, it was his life's mission to keep the animals safe from poachers and human greed. On one fateful day, as Valentin and Mikkel ventured out in their rugged off-road vehicle, they were just another pair of conservationists working for a greater cause. The sun was high, the grass swayed gently in the breeze, and the ground was dry beneath their tires. But then a strange, heart-wrenching sound pierced the air. At first, the two men thought it was just the call of a distant antelope, but as they drove closer, they realized this was something far more urgent. The sound was not coming from the open plains, but from the thick, tall grasses, a soft, almost pleading moan. Without a second thought, Valentin stopped the engine, signaling to Mikkel. They knew something wasn't right. The noises didn't belong to any animal they had encountered before. With cautious steps, they ventured towards the source, braving the unknown. The ground beneath them crunched softly, and each step filled the air with tension. As they moved closer, the sight that awaited them was nothing short of shocking. 3 tiny lion cubs huddled together in the tall grass. 2 of them were lifeless, lying motionless on the ground. The third cub, still breathing, looked up at them with wide, terrified eyes. At first, the 2 men were frozen in place. The savannah was known for being home to fierce predators, and a mother lion could be lurking nearby, ready to protect her cubs at all costs. The risk was real. Every step they took carried the possibility of provoking an attack. But Valentin's heart ached at the sight of the helpless cub, alone and fighting for its life. As he approached, his mind raced. The cub's tiny body was frail, its ribs visible through its thin fur. Its eyes were wide with fear. Yet there was a glimmer of hope. This small creature was reaching out for help. Valentin could feel the weight of the situation. The cub's siblings had already succumbed to the harshness of the wild, likely victims of poachers who had killed their mother for her valuable hide, her teeth, and her bones. In that moment, Valentin understood what had to be done. He couldn't leave the cub to die alone in the wild. Mikkel stood back, knowing the risks, but Valentin couldn't bear the thought of abandoning the cub. Slowly, carefully, he bent down, extending a hand. The cub looked at him with a mixture of curiosity and fear. With a gentle touch, Valentin gained its trust, lifting the small lion into his arms. Despite the urgency of the situation, Valentin felt a strange sense of peace. He knew he was making the right choice, even though the dangers of the savannah still surrounded them. Once the cub was safely in his arms, Valentin made the decision to take it home. He named her Silver, after the gleaming sheen of her coat. But the journey was far from over. The tiny cub was weak, starving, and traumatized by the ordeal. Valentin rushed back to their camp, his heart pounding with each passing minute. The cub was so small and fragile, but Valentin knew he couldn't waste any time. Back at the camp, Valentin tried to feed Silver, but her body refused to accept anything. Despite the desperation of her situation, she was too weak to even eat. Valentin's heart broke at the sight of her. This beautiful creature, so close to death, yet still clinging to life. He immediately called the local veterinarian, who was shocked by the cub's condition. The vet warned Valentine that there was little hope for her survival, but Valentine was determined. He had saved Silver's life, and he wasn't going to let her slip away so easily. The vet worked tirelessly with Valentine, administering fluids and medicines to stabilize Silver's condition. For the next 2 days, Valentine stayed by her side, comforting her as she fought for her life. Finally, after days of uncertainty, Silver showed signs of improvement. Her eyes brightened, and her once frail body began to regain strength. The worst of the danger had passed, but there was still much work to be done. As the days turned into weeks, Valentine and Silver formed an unbreakable bond. Silver began to trust him completely, and her playful, curious nature started to emerge. Valentine had become her protector, her teacher, and her family. They spent countless hours together, playing, exploring, and learning from one another. Valentine knew that this was not just a rescue mission, but the beginning of a friendship that would last a lifetime. Silver, once timid and frightened, grew stronger with each passing day. Valentine fed her, nurtured her, and taught her the essential survival skills that she would need in the wild. But as much as Valentine loved Silver, he knew that there would come a time when she would need to return to the wild, to a place where she could live freely, as nature intended. But the reality was difficult. As Silver grew, so did her need for space. She had outgrown the small home they shared, and Valentine knew that keeping her in captivity would not be fair to her. It was time to make another difficult decision, one that would break his heart. The day came when Valentine had to face the reality of what was best for Silver. The local villagers were growing concerned about Silver's size and strength, and Valentine's responsibilities in Germany made it impossible for him to continue caring for her. The sanctuary offered a solution, but it meant letting Silver go. Valentine's heart was heavy as he prepared for the goodbye. He knew that Silver would be safer in the sanctuary, surrounded by other lions and wildlife experts. But the thought of leaving her behind filled him with sorrow. He had raised her from a tiny, fragile cub into the powerful lioness she had become. Yet, deep down, Valentine knew that it was the right thing to do. The farewell was tearful and emotional. As Valentine left the sanctuary, he could see the sadness in Silver's eyes. She didn't understand why he was leaving, but Valentine hoped that someday she would understand that it was for her own good. Life at the sanctuary wasn't easy for Silver. She was withdrawn, refusing to interact with the other lions. She struggled to adapt to the new environment and the unfamiliar faces around her. The sanctuary staff did their best to make her feel at home, but Silver's health began to decline. She missed Valentine, the man who had raised her and become her family. Silver's depression worsened, and the sanctuary staff became increasingly concerned. They reached out to Valentine, who, despite his sadness, knew he had to return to help. He booked the next flight to Africa, determined to see his beloved Silver one last time. When Valentine arrived at the sanctuary, the staff warned him again. Silver was no longer the playful cub he had known. She was now a full-grown lion, and they couldn't predict how she would react to seeing him. The staff urged him to be cautious, but Valentine was resolute. He knew the bond they shared was real, and he was determined to see Silver again. As he entered the enclosure, the air was thick with tension. Would Silver remember him? Would she even recognize him after all this time? The moments that followed were a blur of anticipation. Valentine stepped closer, calling out to her softly. Silver turned, her gaze locking onto him. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Then, without warning, Silver sprinted toward him. The staff watched in awe as the lioness leapt into Valentine's arms, nuzzling him affectionately and licking his face. It was a moment of pure, unfiltered joy. Silver had remembered him. The bond they shared was as strong as ever. Valentine couldn't hold back his tears, and neither could anyone watching. The emotional reunion was a testament to the strength of love and loyalty, even across time and distance. Silver's story is not just one of survival, it is a powerful reminder of the unbreakable bond between humans and animals. In saving Silver, Valentine didn't just rescue a lion, he gave her a second chance at life, and in return, she gave him a lifelong friendship. Their reunion was a moment of pure magic, proving that love can transcend all boundaries, even in the wildest corners of the earth. If this story touched your heart, join us in spreading awareness for the protection of wildlife. Subscribe to our channel, and together, let's work towards a future where every creature, big or small, can live in peace and safety. Thank you for watching, and remember, every small act of kindness can make a world of difference.